A Java program, running fine. Then everything stops. Not slows down, stops. Every thread, every line, frozen while a collector walks the heap looking for garbage. For a quarter of a century, this was just the price of memory you didn't have to manage yourself. Now watch Python. It runs, and it keeps running. It never stops the world to clean up, ever. Swift does the same thing. No global freeze, no collector prowling in the background. The program just flows. Which looks like the winner? Obviously the one that never freezes. That's what the marketing says. That's what it feels like. They didn't win. Python and Swift pay the exact same bill Java pays. They just pay it in a currency you never see, a little bit charged to every single line you write right now in the code you shipped this morning. This is where that money goes. Here's the mechanism, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Every object in Python carries a number, a reference count. It's just a tally of how many things are currently pointing at it. Assign the list to X, the count is 1. Point Y at the same list, the count is 2. Nobody copied anything. There's one list and 2 names holding on to it. Drop E, count goes to 1. Drop X, count goes to 0. And the moment it hits 0, the object is freed. Not later. Not when some collector gets around to it. Right there, on that line, deterministically. That's the difference. Java sweeps, it stops everything and searches for what's dead. Python counts, each object knows, in real time, whether anyone still cares about it. No search, no sweep, no pause. So where's the bill? Here. This is the part nobody puts on the box. Every assignment increments a counter. Every time you pass an argument to a function, increment. Every time a variable goes out of scope, decrement. Every one of these operations is real work. A read, a write, a check for 0. Java pays its bill in one big, visible lump, a pause you can measure with a stopwatch. Python pays the same bill in millions of tiny installments, spread so thin across every line that you never feel any single one. There's no pause because the cost was never allowed to pile up in one place. It's a tax on every line you write. And there's a second charge on the same tax. If 2 threads touch the same object at the same time, they'd both be scribbling on that one counter, and the count would corrupt. So CPython protects it with a single global lock. Yes, that lock. The one that stops Python from running your threads in parallel. Reference counting is the main reason the GIL exists. We've got a whole video on that fight, but the point here is simpler. The thing that buys you no pauses is the same thing that costs you your cores. Counting is elegant. It's also broken in one specific unavoidable way. Watch, A points at B. B points at A. Now delete both names from your program. You can't reach either object anymore. They're garbage, by any honest definition. But each one is still being pointed at by the other. Their counts never reach 0. A reference cycle. And reference counting is completely blind to it, because counting only ever asks how many arrows point here, never where they come from. 2 dead objects can keep each other alive forever. This is the hole at the center of the whole clever idea. The mechanism that made pauses disappear cannot, on its own, clean up after itself. If you want to see the diagrams behind these breakdowns before the videos go up, there's a Patreon. Links in the description. Now back to the hole in the middle of Python. So here's the twist, the marketing skips. CPython has a garbage collector. A real one. A separate tracing collector that exists for exactly one job, finding those cycles that counting can't. It's generational. It checks younger objects more often than old ones, to keep the cost down. But make no mistake about what it is. When it runs, it has to stop and look. It pauses. The whole no stop the world story needed a stop the world collector bolted onto the back to be correct at all. So Python doesn't have no garbage collector. It has 2 systems. Reference counting for the easy immediate case, and a tracing collector with a pause. For the case counting, can't touch. The pause never left. It just got smaller, rarer, and hidden. You were told it was gone. It was only moved. Now Swift. Swift uses the same core idea, automatic reference counting, ARC, but with a twist of its own. Instead of counting at runtime, the compiler inserts the retain and release calls for you, ahead of time, right into your binary. But ARC has the exact same blind spot. 2 objects pointing at each other still deadlock their own counts. Same hole. So how does Swift patch it? It doesn't add a second collector. It hands the problem back to you. You mark one of the references weak or unowned. That tells the compiler, this arrow points, but it doesn't count. Don't keep the object alive for it. And now the cycle can drain to 0, which means Swift solved the cycle problem by giving the job to the programmer. You have to know the cycle is there. You have to decide which arrow doesn't count. Get it wrong and you leak. Get it wrong the other way and your object dies while you're still using it. The pause didn't come back, but the labor did. Someone still has to do the work. Swift just decided that someone is you. Step back, because this is the whole point. Managing memory automatically has exactly 3 prices, and no language has ever escaped paying at least one. There's time, the pause. The collector stops the world to trace what's alive. That's the bill Java paid, out loud, for 25 years. There's space. You spend extra heap and extra CPU to make the pause small. That's the modern trade. Throw memory and compute at the problem so the freeze shrinks towards 0. And there's human effort. You do part of the job by hand. That's the weak reference. That's you deciding which arrow doesn't count. So where does reference counting sit? Here's the answer. This whole channel has been building toward. Reference counting is not a fourth option. It's not the escape hatch. It's all 3 prices at once, just paid in smaller coins. A constant sliver of time and CPU on every line. A second collector, extra space, and an occasional pause to catch the cycles. And in Swift, manual effort to break those cycles by hand. Time, space, and labor. The same 3 prices. It didn't avoid the bill. It just split it into change small enough that you stopped noticing you were paying. So look at the 4 of them together. Java pays in time. The tuned collectors pay in space. Swift pays in your labor. And Python pays a little of each, everywhere, invisibly. 4 different answers to one question. How do you clean up memory you didn't allocate by hand, and not one of them is free? You've felt this tax before, even if you never named it. That half-second stutter when a long-running Python script hangs for no reason you can see, that wasn't your laptop. That was the collector, waking up to clean what counting couldn't. That's the uncomfortable thing. There's no clever mechanism waiting to be discovered that pays nothing. Every design in this funnel just moved the cost somewhere you were less likely to look. Nobody found the exit. If this sounds like nobody found the exit, it's because nobody did. But somebody did get the time bill down to 1/10 of a millisecond. One collector, on a language famous for freezing, drove the pause so low you can barely measure it. This is the story of how.